Right, before we go any further, I just want to make sure that everybody remembers what we did last time and that everybody knows the difference between these three bombs, i.e. what we've got in the center of our stage, and the bomb that we created in our library with the fuse on it. Now remember, what we have on the right hand side in our library are just the characters that we create for our game. It's not our actual game, it's just things that we might want to use in our game. It's a good place to store them. And in the center, this is our actual game. So what we did first of all was we created a movie clip of a bomb with a fuse going down that you can see there. Fuse gets smaller. We created that inside the library. And then at the very end of the last lesson, we dragged three of those across onto our stage. So now we have three bombs on our stage. Okay. Now we're going to make those bombs a little more realistic before we move on. And to make them realistic, they're going to need some sort of fire or some sort of flame on them. First of all, they're going to need a flame so that the fuse burns down. And secondly, they're going to need to explode. So we need to create some sort of flame. And like everything else, we created here in the library. So I'm going to click on my new symbol in the library button down here. And I'm going to make sure movie clip is selected because my flame is going to move. And I'm going to give it a good name. Let's call it flame. Okay. And immediately that's taken me to a new place in my library. It's given me the name of flame, and as you can see, there's nothing drawn there already. So I'm going to draw it in the center of my screen. And for me, a flame needs to have a kind of dark orange outline and maybe a kind of yellowy orange center. Remember, this is the color for the line, and this is the color for the center of your circle. I'm going to choose the circle tool, and instead of drawing a normal circle, I'm going to stretch it down a little bit like this so it looks kind of like a flame. And maybe I'm going to draw a couple of brighter sparks, just little small circles, maybe coming off the top of that flame, the same way you would see with a candle. Okay, great. Now to make it move, just the same way we did with our bomb, I'm going to insert another keyframe. Remember, it has to be a keyframe, can't be a blank frame, it has to be a keyframe. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my selection tool up here, my arrow, and I'm going to make sure that I double click on this, because if I only single click on it, notice the difference there. If I single click on it, I only select the line around the outside, but then if I double click again in the center, the little perforated dots go all the way through it. So I've got all of it selected. I'm going to use my arrow keys to move it a little bit to the right. Okay, and I think I'll maybe select these little sparks and move them maybe a little bit down, that one. You'll move this one kind of up a bit, and this one maybe to the left. Whoops. Okay, so here we have one frame. My first frame and the second frame looks a little bit different if I move between the two of them. See that? Great. Now I'm going to put in a third one. You can put as many frames in as you want to make this animation as complex as you want to, but I'm just going to put a few in. And this time with my small circles, I'm just going to click once, and I'm going to, maybe on purpose, I'm going to use the keys to just move part of those circles. Maybe just the line on the outside of those circles. So I'm actually, notice where they're dividing in two, so I've got the line of the outside of the circle there and the circle here. And let's have a look at the difference. 1, 2, 3. That looks pretty good to me. Maybe with the third one, maybe this big one here, the big flame, I'll move it a couple of pixels just to the left. Okay, now if I press enter, if I go to the first frame and I press enter, I can kind of see the way this moves about. So if I keep pressing enter, I can see it kind of flicker. It looks a wee bit like a flame. Maybe we want to make that smaller, it actually look more like a flame. Okay, so that's what I'm going to use for my flame. And I want to put this inside my bomb symbol. So I'm going to go back to my library. I'm going to double click on my bomb. And should be natural enough now. I'm going to, before you draw anything new that's going to move by itself onto a picture, you need to insert a new layer. So I'm going to go to my layer tool here and I'm going to insert layer. And immediately I'm going to double click on it and I'm going to give it a reasonable name. I'm going to call it flame. And making sure that I'm in the very first frame of my movie, I'm going to drag and drop that flame from my library. I'm going to drop it in the very end of my fuse there. Okay, I can move it a wee bit over to the right. Okay, now I can immediately realize that that's a little bit big for my bomb, isn't it, that flame? So what I can do is I can select it, and I can use my resize tool, which is this square with dots in it, and I can make that just a little bit smaller. I'd say maybe about that size there would be fine for me. And then just drag it down and put it on top of my fuse again. Right, fantastic. At the minute, if I go through my animation, I've got a flame there, but the flame doesn't exactly follow my fuse. So I've got to fix that, and that's very, very, very easy to fix. Just go back to the start, and I'm going to make sure that I'm on the flame layer. I'm going to go across to where that black dot is on the fuse layer, just where it moves down. And I'm going to insert a keyframe in my flame. And I'm just going to move that flame down on top of my fuse. Next stage, my fuse changes was this black dot. So I'm going to go immediately above it on my flame layer. I'm going to say insert keyframe. And I'm going to pick up my flame and move it down there. Same thing again. Immediately above the black dot where my fuse moves, I'm going to say insert keyframe. I'm going to move my flame across to my fuse. Leave it there. Next one is over here, same thing, insert keyframe. Now you'll probably find that if you try and use the mouse, it moves in little jumps. But what you can do is you move it as close as you possibly can with the mouse, and you can use the arrow keys on the keyboard to get it pixel perfect. Okay, insert keyframe. There we go. Not very many of these left, 4 or 5 left. Next jump is up here. Oops. Did something bad there. My bad. I forgot to insert my keyframe. So I'm going to go back and do it again. Insert keyframe. Move it up. Insert keyframe. Move it up. Oops. Insert keyframe. Same thing. Insert keyframe. Insert keyframe. I think I've got 2 left. Move it across. Insert keyframe. There we go. Now the final one, if you want to, you can do something a bit special. Now in the very, very final one, what I think I'm going to do, I've just inserted the keyframe with the hotkey F6. I'm not only going to make it go right inside here, I'm going to make it disappear. So I'm going to change the shape of it, make it like a stubby little flame, like that. See a little ball flame there. And I'm just going to move that down. So the very last time it kind of gets sucked inside. Alright, let's see what that looks like. I'm going to go back to the very, very start. And I'm just going to watch it moving around and following my fuse, making sure it looks alright.